Good evening from snowy St. Louis. Neither rain nor sleet nor snow could keep us from welcoming everyone this evening, especially our guest and speaker, Miss Wanda Battle, joining us from Montgomery, Alabama, with what I thought would be much nicer climate, but we've since learned it's been pretty rainy there this evening as well. I'm Heather Bureau, as Marilee said, Principia's Director of Lifelong Learning, and Marilee McFarland, Senior Director of Alumni Field Relations, will be joining me later this evening to field your questions. While notice of this event was short, we are so grateful to have more than 300 people tuning in from near and far. Please feel free to use the chat box to share from where you are joining us. Continued engagement with history is critical for providing context with the present. We're grateful for the opportunity to host next month's Civil Rights: A Journey to Freedom, a Principia Lifelong Learning trip to Alabama, accompanied by Principia College faculty member and PLL trip lecturer, Dr. Billy Miller. There's a link in the chat box for you to find out more information about this trip. For 5 days next month, our travelers will immerse themselves in the events, stories, and sites of the civil rights movement. It'll be an occasion for engaging conversations and deep listening. As the civil rights generation matures, preserving personal stories of those in this social justice movement becomes more urgent. And hearing from distinguished speakers like Miss Battle and foot soldiers who can share firsthand authentic accounts is crucial to how we experience and understand history. It offers us insight into the past that other mediums alone cannot capture. Miss Battle will be joining our PLO group next month when we visit Dexter Avenue King Memorial Baptist Church in Montgomery, the church Martin Luther King Jr. pastored for 6 years. Miss Battle is the director of tour ministry, and her knowledge and positive energy bring to life not only the history of the church, but its impact as an essential thread woven in the community's fabric. I've been told it's not uncommon for Miss Battle to share the story in song, and I'm hoping this evening will be treated to that as well. She's going to share with us this evening about her life growing up in Montgomery and how she came to be involved in the civil and human rights movement. There'll be plenty of time for your questions, so please utilize the Q&A box. Also joining us from Birmingham and Troy, Alabama this evening and available for questions are Steve Cox and John Key. They are the founders of the Civil Rights Tourism Association and the tour operators for our upcoming trip. Registrations are still being accepted, so if you have questions specific to the trip, Steve and John are happy to answer. I've taken enough time. We're all here for Miss Battle, so without further delay, I'll turn the mic and attention to Miss Wanda Battle.
Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm so very delighted to have been invited into this conversation tonight and to come and share the heart of the work that I'm doing here in Montgomery and to give you a background of how I came to this journey. And I want to say thank you to Marilee McFarland and Heather Bureau for inviting me in, and my tour partners, Steve Cox and John Key, for welcoming and making this possible. So tonight, my goal is that each one of us will be enlightened and that we'll be encouraged even the more in this work for human rights and social justice. So I want to just start off tonight because when I tour, I love singing, and I found that singing brings us together and it unifies us. And it doesn't matter whether you have a great voice or not. It's a great opportunity for people to just come and love on one another. And I found that it really does work. So tonight I'm going to start off, and many of you may know this song, "This Little Light of Mine." I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Sing with me if you can. And even if you're in the key of Z, it's okay. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, this little light of mine, yes, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Now, I'm going to tell you why I like singing that song. First, it was one of the most important freedom songs that was sang during the Montgomery bus boycott and the 1960 civil rights marches and mass meetings. And I like singing it with you because that's who we are on this planet. Every one of us are shining lights, and we every day are giving the world our very best. And so leave that song with you, and I hope that even when we're off the call, that you'll sing this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, as you're looking behind me, you're looking at a scene in the heart of Montgomery, Alabama. And this is the fountain that is here in the center of our city. And so I like this little view of Montgomery. And I look forward to having you all come and share this experience of what I call my Montgomery with you. Tonight, I want to take a few minutes because time is going to pass quickly. And I want to just share through a visual format. I want to kind of take you on a little journey with me. And as we go into this journey, I want you to understand where this came from for me. I'll tell you about my background, but I want you all to know that where I have arrived now has come with a journey that wasn't so easy. And I want to just say to each one of you, the goal is to be who you are and be your best. I've been suicidal twice and I've been homeless. And the work that I do now has journeyed me to this place where I can really tell the honest truth of what human rights and social justice is and what it looks like in a practical way. And so I want you to take this journey with me today so that as you hear my story, know that you have your own story and you have your own shoes that you're walking in. So let's start with this little journey of mine. I want to introduce you to Legendary Tours. Dexter Church closed on March 15th, 2020, as everybody knows, with the pandemic, and it hasn't opened for the public yet. However, they allow my tours to come in, and I'm very grateful for that. I started my own business, Legendary Tours, almost 1 year ago on March 9th. And it has been an incredible journey for me to come to a place at age 65 where I have started my own business now. And I'm doing what I love. My company, Legendary Tours, I hope you like my logo. And I hope you'll have an opportunity to visit my website, wandahbattle.com. With that, I always have messages that I like sharing with all of you. And this is one of mine, many quotes that come as I'm touring my visitors to help us all understand this message and this work of human rights, social justice, and civil rights. This is one of my quotes. It says, many people carry prejudice and fear, yet we all benefit when we open our hearts to respect and appreciate one another's differences. Do you know that every one of us are different? No one is the same. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. We're all individuals and we're all uniquely made. And I do want you to know that love is a lifestyle. I always do a little background on those that I tour, and I was very excited to go to your website and read about Principia College and to find out you all are right off of the Mississippi River. What a beautiful campus you have. And so I want to say one day I hope to visit your campus. With that, I love the title, A Walk in Her Shoes. A walk in my shoes. Well, nobody can really walk in each other's shoes, but vicariously we do in this goal to help us all understand each other a little better and to have more compassion for one another. So I love this title. So come on and walk in my shoes vicariously tonight. I started off, I was born here in Montgomery, Alabama, September 11th, 1956, a few months before the Montgomery bus boycott ended. And I grew up during the 1960s civil rights movement. And I wanted to just share a picture of my family with you. My father passed away when I was 5 years of age. And I wanted you to see a picture, and I wanted to just have a picture here as I reminisce his involvement and his work in the Montgomery bus boycott. My father had two other brothers, and I want you all to know that they moved from Lowndes County, Alabama to Montgomery in the mid 1940s, and they opened four businesses. And there was a funeral home, there was a barber shop, a shoe shine, and a taxi service. And they carried those businesses until they passed away. And even the generations of children in our family had worked the businesses. And at this particular time, what used to be the barber shop is now a full service salon. And my cousins who run it are now in their 80s. They're 81 and 83, and they have never worked for anyone else. I commend my father and his brothers and their family. And I want to say that as I looked at our community growing up here in Montgomery, my mother and father worked together, and they trained us, and they worked in the community with the hopes of making this community safe and one for us to grow and thrive in as children living in segregated Montgomery, Alabama at that time. There was Black Montgomery and there was white Montgomery, and we didn't mix very often. I only remember when mother would buy shoes for us for school or special events would she go downtown to purchase outfits or shoes. That was the only time that I remember her or us venturing downtown. Everything else was in our community on the west side of Montgomery. And with that having been said, I remember visiting one of the department stores because we had Crest and HL Green were some of the stores, but they were segregated, and you had to go downstairs to purchase. And we would look at the street level counters of food inside because they usually had a little lunch counter, and we wanted to go there. But you couldn't go there. And mother would say, you can't eat there. You can't go there now. But I want to say that as we walked through the Montgomery bus boycott, as they told the story to me as I grew up, I want to say thank you to every person in the community who sacrificed. And instead of being afraid, they were faith-filled people who decided they would stand against the injustices here in Montgomery. And when Rosa Parks was arrested, December 1st, 1955, the community came together and they unified and they transformed our bus system here in the state of Alabama subsequently because they decided that the cause was right and that the cause was greater than the cost. And I must say to this day, the work that I'm doing now, advocating for love and justice and equality, it was seeded then. Yes. And I'm sharing this picture of my family. There were 8 children of us. Well, that's me to the far right. As a kid, you know, it's always good to go look at yourself at different stages of your existence. And I must say, this was a picture that I always loved. My father had passed by this time. This was in the mid 1960s, and he passed in 1962. And I thank God for my beautiful, lovely, brilliant, courageous mother who reared us with the help of God and the community, helping to pour into all of our lives. And so I wanted to just share this picture, those pictures with you of my family. Well, I want you to know that 1960s, when the Selma to Montgomery March took place, My two older sisters, Princella and Barbara, were student leaders, and they led their classes out of St. Jude Catholic High School, and they organized the students at Carver High School and Booker T. Washington High Schools, which were the three Black high schools here in Montgomery at the time. And they organized the students to march out of the schools to walk that last leg from the city of St. Jude to the Alabama State Capitol on March 25th, 1965. Well, that successful march, as you all know, there were 25,000 people who gathered there at the Capitol steps and in front of Dexter Avenue King Memorial Baptist Church for that march. And Dr. King delivered his famous "How long, not long" speech on that occasion, 1965. I want you to know that here in Montgomery, that was such a historic event because February 18th, 1861, Jefferson Davis stood on those Capitol steps and delivered his inaugural address as the first president of the Confederacy. Governor Wallace in 1965 was the governor at the time, and he wouldn't allow Dr. King to stand on those steps that day of March 25th, 1965, when he delivered that famous speech. Governor Wallace wouldn't allow them on the steps. But I do want you all to know that fast forward to 2015, Dr. King's youngest daughter, Dr. Bernice A. King, and Governor George Wallace's daughter, Peggy Sue Wallace Kennedy, were on program that day. And from the Capitol steps, Dr. Bernice A. King delivered her father's famous "How long, not long" speech. And when she completed the speech from those Capitol steps, Peggy Sue Wallace Kennedy rose and they embraced each other in such a way that left tears in many of our eyes, because it represented reconciliation of these two fathers who many years ago, 50 years at that time of that celebration, had been at odds with one another. But now here we are 50 years later, and their daughters have come together in unity. We're changing here in Montgomery, everybody. And I do want to say that when George Floyd was killed in April of 2020, this city rose up as well. And this picture that you see of me here, I'm singing "We Shall Overcome," leading the group on the steps of the Museum of Archives and History that day. And that day I was remembering all of those who had marched in years prior, who had made it possible for me to come and to advocate for a righteous, or shall we say, a right cause, or we felt was a right cause. And with that, I embrace it in my work as a tour guide, so that we all come to the table of brotherhood and sisterhood, and we come to that place of reconciliation where we all find that we're advocates and we're activists for change, so that we make our homes and our communities and our world a better place to live in. With that having been said, you never know where life is going to take you. Because I want you to know, as you're looking at this picture, in 1968, after Dr. King was killed, April 4th, 1968, my mother moved us from Montgomery to Atlanta. She said, "My children, I need a better job. I need more exposure and opportunities for you, my children." And we moved to Atlanta. And I can see now that it was God's plan, because I attended Charles Lincoln Harper High School and I graduated from Spelman College in 1977 as a soprano. You never know where life is going to take you. When I got out of my mother's car in the 8th grade to take ballet on Spelman's campus, I looked around that campus and I said to myself, this is where I'm going to college. I never changed my mind. I never thought about any other college. And I would just want you all to know, had it been any different and I had not been accepted to Spelman, I would have been up the creek, okay, as they say. But I want to just say to many of you as college students, you never know where life is going to journey you, and you never really know how you'll end up and for what reasons you are attending the college that you have selected. But it's all with purpose. And it's all with the purpose of not only you being poured into, but that you go out and do good and represent your college. And so I want you to know that last year in February, I was invited to tour Israel's ambassador, the US ambassador from Washington, DC, Ambassador Gilad Erdan at Dexter Church. I toured him there. Well, 1 week later, I received a call from the embassy asking me to sing the Hatikvah, which means the hope, which is Israel's national anthem. And they asked me to sing it for the 73rd anniversary of Israel's independence. Well, guess what my response was? I told the young lady, I said, well, that's like asking a black person. I mean, that's like asking a white person to sing the Negro national anthem. And we both chuckled. But she went on to explain to me, she said, Miss Wanda, she says, because of the work that you're doing and the message that you are sending to the world to unite and integrate and to meld into one another's cultures so that we come to understand and get a greater sense of our unity and our humanity. We felt that it was appropriate. Well, everybody, I can tell you, as you look at this picture, this is me standing in Temple Beth Or singing the Hatikvah and the US national anthem. And Miss Claire Wheel, who is a member there and a dear friend of mine, and she's president of our Montgomery public school system. She is an excellent violinist who plays with our symphony orchestra. She accompanied me that evening. And so I want to say to all of you students, you never know where life is going to take you, but say yes to new opportunities. Say yes to new experiences in life, because you never know what door is going to be opened up for you and where that door will take you. I just put this little picture in here because I'm so inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King and Mrs. Coretta Scott King, because he was the 20th pastor of Dexter Church. And I wanted to show you a picture of what the church looked like back in the 1940s and 50s. This, if you see the house next to the church, it doesn't look like that now, neither does the steps. But this is what the church steps looked like when Dr. King pastored. He pastored that church from September 1954 to January 1960, almost 6 years. Can you imagine being 25 years of age? And I don't know, some of you may or may not know Mrs. Coretta Scott King was 2 years older than Dr. King. She was 27 when they came. But I can tell you, even though they were younger than most of the congregation, they were wise. They were charismatic. They were loving and kind and very well spoken. All the things we love about Dr. King and Mrs. King. They were that. And to this day, we are honoring them. And so I just wanted to share that with you. This is what the church looks like now with the cascading steps. And if you notice, it's 1 block from the Alabama State Capitol. How about that? When Governor Wallace, when I was telling you earlier in 1965, when Dr. King delivered the how long, not long speech from the foot of the Alabama State Capitol, you can see how close it was. And there were 25,000 people gathered in the street. So the church is only 1 block from the Alabama State Capitol. Well, guess who that is in front of the church? It's me. I have loved conducting tours at Dexter Avenue King Memorial Baptist Church for these past 8 years, everybody. And I cannot wait for you to come so that I can share it with you. With that, I place this feature here because we are in a season where there are so many human rights social justice and civil rights issues on the table and in our society. And so I wanted you to just look at these, because there's child hunger and the LGBT community, civil rights and human rights issues, homelessness. There's affordable health care and how we're treating our seniors, and faith differences of all of us, our migrant workers that are working in our fields, the voting rights issues, mental health, and people of all ethnic diversity. All of these are issues that all of us are having to examine. And so with that, I want you all to meet this little lady. Her name is Claudette Colvin. And you may have read in national news, Claudette was arrested for not giving up her bus seat to a white woman March 2nd, 1955. And you see the picture of her at age 15 on the left. Well, Claudette is now 82 years of age. And she, on December 16th, 2021, meaning 2 months ago, her record was expunged. Let's give a hand for Miss Claudette Colvin. 66 years, but she found justice here in Montgomery, Alabama. And we want to thank Judge Calvin Williams, who signed off on her expungement. So justice is still being served here in the city of Montgomery and the state of Alabama, everybody. I love Dr. King, and there's so many quotes. I know, as all of you have listened to his messages around through the years, this is one of my favorites. Say to yourself, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Who is the light and the love? It's us. And then Mrs. Coretta Scott King, you all, I want you to honor her as much as you do her husband, because she was as committed to the cause of human rights and social justice and civil rights as Dr. King was. And this is one of my favorite quotes of hers. Struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. That means here we are. It's in our hands now. I love that. With that, with my company, be love, be light, everybody. Love is a lifestyle. That's the message that I will carry for the rest of my life to the world every day. And I say it to each one of you. If I could say it individually, please receive it as that. Be love and be light every day. Love is a lifestyle. And this last one, I want to say we are the beloved community. You see the hands all locked? Well, our hands and our hearts are locked. And guess what's also connected? Our minds. How we believe, how we engage with one another is very important every day. Even the thoughts that we think about one another. Continue to change and alter how you're thinking about the LGBT community, or how you're thinking about the people who live next door to you who are ethnically different or have a different faith because their practices are different, or the people who have less money than you. I'm just saying. And with that, I'm going to stop right here, because this is a place where I guess they say, let's talk. So Heather, I shall give it back to you. I hope my time was pretty good.
That's wonderful. And thank you. And I know with our participants, we're going to have several questions. Sometimes it takes a bit for them to gather them. Please go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A. Marilee and I will go ahead and ask them of you, Ms. Battle. And we also have Steve and John joining us, who are the tour operators and able to help answer questions about the tour specifically. But Wanda, while they're gathering their questions, I'm just wondering, with you being the tour minister at Dexter Avenue King Memorial Baptist Church, and it was 8 years ago, I think you said you joined that. How did you land there when you could be singing stages around the world?
Oh my goodness, that's a part of my journey as well, that I'm happy to share. Let's say about 5 months before I was offered the position at Dexter, I was out of work. I was in a season where things were in a transition of my life. And the lady that I had cared for, because I was a caregiver for a season, she passed away. And for those 5 months, I would pray and I would say, God, I say, give me this day my daily bread. God, I'm going to trust you to make sure my bills are paid. And I'm going to say thank you right now. Well, on April 26, 2014, I received a call from a dear friend who is best friends with who was the director at Dexter of tourism at the time. And she says, Wanda, she says, Judge McPherson is looking for a tour guide at the church at Dexter. Do you think that's something you'd like to do? And you all, I'm on the other side of the phone shouting and doing a happy dance. And I calmly say, yes, it sounds like something I would love. And all I can tell you is God swung open the door. And here I am 8 years later, having found my purpose and the meaning. And I've stepped into this moment and I'm so very happy and excited about it.
And that's not obvious at all, Wanda.
Oh, Wanda, this is great. Did you ever have the opportunity to meet Dr. Martin Luther King?
No, I didn't. I was too young. No, but my mother, my parents, and my two older sisters absolutely worked with them at the Montgomery Improvement Association.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Someone's asking if you're related to a Kathleen Battle.
Oh, I wish I were. When I was studying at Spelman, Kathleen Battle and Jesse Norman were my mentors, and Leontine Price. But I never had an opportunity to meet her, but her voice is like an angel. She's one of the coloraturas. And I'm so honored to have her last name now. So I thank my late husband for giving me that name to have a connection.
One of our listeners supports the SPLC in Montgomery and is wondering if you interact with them at all. They're
Absolutely.
recognizing how important they are during these times and also thanking you for all that you do and stand for.
Thank you very much. SPLC stands for Southern Poverty Law Center, everybody. And they are an organization that litigate cases of injustice and discrimination, and they track hate groups around the world. If you have an opportunity, visit their website. There is a hate map out there, and you will be shocked at how many hate organizations are around this country, not just in southern cities, in southern states. But yes, their work is so very important. So continue to support them. And I do want to say that they just opened about 2 weeks ago the museum inside. They've renovated it and they've opened it now. And though they have the Civil Rights Memorial outside that Maya Lin, who designed the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., Maya Lin designed the Civil Rights Memorial here in Montgomery. But once you visit outside the memorial, go inside to visit the museum.
And Steve, can you tell us, this will be part of the going to the Wall of Tolerance? Is that part of the tour we'll be doing next month?
Well, hey, this is John. Steve still on mute, but I do want to just touch base with you. I was speaking with the Civil Rights Memorial Director actually this morning. They're closed on Monday and Tuesdays when we'll be in Montgomery, but we have put in a special permit, special request. And I believe we're going to be able for them to accommodate us. But just like Wanda said, they only opened 2 weeks ago. Everything has been renovated. I'm going up on Tuesday with one of the other speakers that everyone will be meeting, Dr. Carolyn McKinstry and Dr. Martha Boyer, and to do a walkthrough with them. So yes, I hope we can include this in the visit.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Wanda, one of the questions that has come in asks, how young were you when you first learned to be so forgiving? What helped you to achieve that God-based quality?
I was born into the church, Mount Zion, AME Zion Church may sound familiar to some of you. It is a historic church because that's where the Montgomery Improvement Association was organized on December 5th, 1955, where that meeting was held. And Dr. King was elected president of the MIA, as we call it. But that was the church I was born into. And I always had family and community who were faith-based. The Black community thrived on the Black church because the Black church was where not only did social events take place and religious, inspirational experiences take place, but it was like the hub of the community. And I do want to say this, that's why when the pastors came together here in Montgomery and selected Dr. King as the spokesperson for the bus boycott, the pastors were all friends. When we grew up, we were all connected to the churches, and they would program to have events for us children, like Vacation Bible School. All of the children from the various churches attended. We would go 1 week or 2 weeks at this church and then the next and then on to the next. So that was very important to the success of the Montgomery bus boycott. But I'm saying that to say they had seeded the faith, because a part of our faith was courage, and watching them work together as a connected and unified community to make a change. And so it's still in me.
All right, here's a question. It was said, when I think about why I'm seeking to have my name cleared by the state, it's because I believe if that happened, it would show the generation growing up now that progress is possible and things do get better. It will inspire them to make the world better. How do people like you and Miss Claudette Colvin, who you spoke of earlier, stay so positive when positive change seems so slow? And can you please leave some words of encouragement for folks listening?
I believe it's just as Mrs. Coretta Scott King said in that quote, struggle is an unending process, and it's from generation to generation. Faith is the same way, faith and hope. You can't lose hope. Had the people in Montgomery allowed fear to stop them, our story would be totally different. I wouldn't be on this call with you. And our history of human rights and social justice would be different, because Rosa Parks would have been too afraid to stand against the city of Montgomery and those practices of segregation. But I want to say to you, because of faith and because of love and the understanding that we all need one another, every day, no matter what shows up, and I've cried a tsunami of tears in these past almost 2 years, inside I still have hope. And I have decided that I am going to be love, and I'm going to be light every day. I'm going to do my best to live this as a lifestyle, to live love as a lifestyle. And I want to encourage everyone on this call, keep educating yourselves, read books that are ones that you normally wouldn't. Go to see documentaries or movies that challenge your thinking or help to educate you. Have conversations. Let this not be just a one-time conversation on a Zoom call. No, keep engaging with one another so that we all continue to come to a greater understanding and a heart of reconciliation, so that healing can take place for all of us, because all of us need healing. So keep growing and educating and choose to be love. That's it. Choose to be it.
Well, thank you so much. Part of that, education, and we're so grateful to be having this lifelong learning tour to see some of these important sites. Can you share with us about some of the other important civil rights sites to visit and learn from in and around Montgomery?
Oh, yes, this city is full of historic sites. Here in Montgomery, if you're in the downtown area, the river front, which we call the River Walk area, where the enslaved were brought from the Alabama River to be bought and sold on the fountain that you see right here behind me, up until slavery was abolished in 1865. This is a historic area. You cannot see the buildings to my right very much. It's just a little sliver, but it's called the Winter Building. And that's where the telegram to start the Civil War went out in 1861 to fire on Fort Sumter. So here you've got Civil War and civil rights history. A statue of Rosa Parks is right across where you see the clock. There's a statue of Rosa Parks not far. And this, to the left of that clock is the park where Rosa Parks in 1955 boarded the bus. And it went around the corner to where is now the location for Rosa Parks Library and Museum, is now the location where Rosa Parks was arrested. Also in this city, Dexter Church is historic, as you know. As you behind me, my head is in the way, but you can look and see the Alabama State Capitol. Well, Dexter Church, as you saw earlier, is one block in front of it. And that's the Selma to Montgomery March came around this fountain and walked straight up Dexter Avenue to the Alabama State Capitol. These are historic spots. Brian Stevenson, I hope his name sounds familiar to many of you, is the attorney who is founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. And they have opened 2 museums here in Montgomery that I'm sure John has on the schedule for you to visit. But that's the Legacy Museum that tells the history of lynchings and mass incarceration in America. And their sister museum is an outdoor facility that's the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. And it's an outdoor museum that has the columns of names of counties where Black people were lynched. And it is very powerful. Those 2 museums come. The Legacy Museum has just opened a new facility as of October 1st. The old one was 11,000 square feet. The new facility is now 44,000 square feet. So you can spend some hours in the new Legacy Museum. There's much to see. So there are many places to see around Montgomery. I take my visitors, and I'm gonna say this quickly, to the former Montgomery City Jail. There is no marker or historical marking to tell the story, but that former jail is where Dr. King and Mrs. Rosa Parks were arrested. And it is my goal to advocate until they make it a historic landmark. But right now it services our sanitation department. However, I still take my tours there. So if you come tour with me, if we have time, we're going to the former Montgomery City Jail so that you can see inside of the room where there were the jail cells and the commodes in the cell, and you can see what's happening with it now. History.
Well, we've got several questions coming in, so I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, and some comments as well. And one of the comments is just to remind any of those lifelong learning attendees going on the tour to please give Miss Battle a hug for our listeners. Yes! And then we're wondering what the state of the Black business community is there now. Was it affected by the construction of interstate decades ago? And when we go, will we have an opportunity to support Black-owned businesses?
I am so happy whoever asked that question, because the community where I grew up right off of it used to be called West Jeff Davis Avenue, but Mayor Reed and our city council just changed that name in October to Fred D. Gray. As John was talking about him earlier, we have changed the name of that street to Fred D. Gray Avenue. And the street I lived on, Dorsey Street, is now where I-65 and I-85 are located. The urban renewal came into our community in 1968, and they removed many streets and many of the businesses and residential homes from our community, and none of that history has really been preserved. So we are working now to restore that area, because that is where Mount Zion AME Zion Church and Holt Street Baptist Church, where the first mass meeting was held, is located in that same community. I do want to say that Black businesses are not what they used to be, but we're coming back. And Legendary Tours is one of them. So we're growing and we're working together too.
May I add that this is John Key, but for the program, for the tour, the bus company is African-American owned. Most every single meal that we are having as a group is being catered or at a Black-owned restaurant. And so, you know, true to the Alabama Civil Rights Tourism Association, we put our efforts where, you know, where we believe. And so, yes, just about everything that you're going to be doing is with a Black-owned business.
And that's why I love Steve and John.
Well, thank you so much. And we're so looking forward to that aspect of the trip. Wanda, going back to your childhood, did you attend segregated schools?
Let me say this in this way. St. Jude Catholic School, where my mother placed us, was predominantly a Black school. It was founded by Father Harold Purcell and by the Catholic Diocese to service the Black community. And so we attended the school as a predominantly Black student body. However, as you all may know, the military integrated in 1948, and therefore we had some of the white students from Maxwell Air Force Base who attended school with us, but it was still predominantly a Black school.
Miss Battle, one of our listeners wrote in, "Thank you, Miss Wanda, for your message of love and life. What do you see as the key racial injustices that still need to be lighted in 2022?
Hatred, misinformation, segregation of too many of our communities, our personal decisions that we're making every day to stay isolated from one another. And I'm not just talking about Black and white issues, I'm talking about multicultural, multi-ethnic lifestyles. As we continue to understand that we are one human race, and we make decisions every day, just in our everyday living, about the people who we engage with. Get to know your neighbors who are different from you. The people you work with on your job, do you really engage and try to meet somebody that's different and get to know them? These are some of the injustices on a personal level, if you ask me, that I think need to be addressed. Because see, human rights and social justice is not just being out in a protest with a sign. It's how we love or not love on each other, how we segregate ourselves intentionally, so that housing, Black people are still, as the whites flee Montgomery and move to the suburban areas, Black people are still moving out to those areas. And so there's still this mindset of how do we just come to the place where we're comfortable being in the same communities and ridding ourselves of all of these myths that we have about one another. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
I'm going to write a book. It's going to be titled I'm Just Saying, okay?
All right, we're putting that down and we're gonna watch for that. Well, I'm gonna bring myself back to video here because we're getting near the end of our time. And Ms. Battle and John and Steve, I want to thank you for joining us this evening, letting that little light of yours shine. Although I'd have to say, Wanda, that you have a pretty big and bright light. And we're so fortunate to hear your story and appreciate the care and the passion with which you share it. I'm sure I can speak for our registered guest in addition to myself when I say that we're so looking forward to meeting you in person next month, giving you that hug. And for those who are interested in joining our tour and reuniting with Miss Battle and John and Steve, please email pll@principia.edu. We can put that in the chat box for you. Or you can visit principia.edu/trips for more information. And we also hope you'll join us on Tuesday, February 24th for the 22nd Monitor Night Live. Join College President John Williams in conversation with the Christian Science Monitor editor, Mark Sappenfield, and correspondent Story Hinckley, Stephanie Haynes Wilson, and Noah Robertson on the topic of journalism in an unfiltered social media world. The listing for this and other upcoming events and links to register can be found at principia.edu/events. And don't forget the annual tradition of summer session is returning June 1st through 11th, and registration is now open for that. And you can find a listing of courses online at principia.edu/summer session. With our time at an end, I want to thank you all for joining us. And I will close with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And as Ms. Battle reminded us tonight, we are the light and we are the love. Thank you and good night.